Hi, I'm Brian. Thanks for joining me and welcome to this video. And today I'm going to be talking about my experiences of late at buying vinyl records at markets and vintage shops. And I want to start with this one, and which is going to make more sense at the end of the video. So stay tuned for that. And this album is Pete Sinfield's Still. Now, if you have a look at that cover, I bought this for $10, by the way. If you have a look at that cover, it's got mold all over it, but it is sort of the rarer um, pressing of this, which is on that blue framed label rather than the pink. And there's Pete on the back. Now, if you don't know who Pete was, he was the lyricist for King Crimson for many of the early albums. And I think this was his first solo album from 1973. So we're talking about 50 years on. And it's on the Manticore label. And the record looks pretty good. And so I was in this vintage record shop the other day. I wasn't intending to spend a lot of money, but I saw it and I thought I will take a punt. At $10, I'm pretty happy with that. Halve it for British pounds and American dollars. I'm pretty happy with that. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And now this sort of stricture, this discipline that I'm trying to show now is a result of me going to some markets about 200 kilometers away from my house. I was going to see some of my family, and part of the thrill and the joy of seeing my family was also being able to go to these markets with them. And I knew that they had vinyl records there because I'd been once before. But let's start off by talking about the positives of going to markets and buying at vintage shops and markets. And one of them is it's the sense of vinyl community, and you're getting out and you're meeting new people, which is really exciting. And also the idea that for a collector or somebody who likes to buy records, any new pop-up shop is generally a good thing. I also love this. Another pro of markets is that you're getting these records maybe out of home and into the public. So you're getting to see this collection, if you like, for the first time. And a number of people that I've seen in markets don't have Discogs accounts, so they're not selling online, and this is your only opportunity to get to. But more than anything, I suppose, it's something to look forward to, going on a little bit of a hunt, going into these markets and starting to flip through. I remember when I stopped buying music in any physical form, and the same for books, is that it was great having all of my songs and my albums in one package like an iPod or a Kindle. But I was passing record shops and bookshops thinking, that used to be fun going in there, and now there's no need anymore. So I'm definitely back down with the vinyl records. But giving all of those as pros, as compared as contrasted with poetry, uh, all of those pros here. I want to talk about this trip that I took a couple of weeks ago to go to two market sellers and give you some thoughts on that. So I went to these markets, as I said, and the first album I picked up was for $20, and it was Even in the Quietest Moments by Supertramp. Now, I love this album, and I'm going to be doing a deep dive on it real soon. And you can tell by looking at the cover that everything looks minty, looks really good. And it's on the A&M label, and the record looks good there. Really happy with that. And I bought from that seller probably 6 weeks ago a copy of Crime of the Century, which doesn't look as good. You've got that ring wear at the top, but you know what? It played fine, and I got this for $20. So I thought I'm going to have a go. And unfortunately, I got home, put it on the turntable, and it was all snap, crackle, and pop. And on an album like Even in the Quietest Moments, the title gives it away that there are going to be quietest moments here. And it really ruins the experience if you've got that going all the way through it. Not happy at all. And while I was down at that market, there was one of the sellers there who wasn't the seller that I saw the previous time. I think they were doing a test playing of the Beatles' Abbey Road, and there was a repetitive jump on the album. So it was, oh, no, wrong key. Oh, darling, oh, darling, oh, darling. And it just became annoying. And the guy took the record off the record player. Great that they had a record player so you could test these things out if you wanted to. Took it off, and rather than repricing it, putting a comment on the outer that there was something wrong with the album, there was a jump on this album. I think Then it just went straight back into the shelves for the next person. Anyway, there was another record seller there at these markets, and this is one that I'd been told existed, but I'd never been able to find them before. But this time I did, and I got really excited early on because I've never seen this album out in the wild. $40 for Lenny Kravitz's Let Love Rule, and so immediately I was going to jump all over that. The cover looks in good condition. I looked at the vinyl, and that also on the Virgin label. Well, you can't tell, of course, can you? Looked in good condition, $40, and also a copy of this, which I've been after for ages, one of my very favorite albums, Steve Miller Band's Sailor, their second album. And, there's a little bit of wear and tear on the cover, but, this is 50 years old, and it's out there on the Capitol label. And so what I did is I did in the other shop as well, because they're all they're all like in tenths rather than intense. They're all intense because you can't have the sun just streaming down on the records. I mean, that's a no-go. But so I asked them if I could just take them out into the sun and have a look at this vinyl, and they all looked really good. So I was very happy. I'd spent, close to $100 at these shops, went home, and when I got home a few days later, should I say, back to my home and put them on my turntable, there was snap, crackle, and all through them. Any type of quiet moment, it became virtually unlistenable. And that's like on Steve Miller Band, it starts off with a recording of the San Francisco Bay and the sounds of ships and foghorns at night. So atmospheric, but I was just waiting for the band to kick in so I could get rid of that. Same for old Lenny. And I've given all of these records a good dry clean, then a couple of saturations with the wet clean, and they didn't really come up any better. And now there's no real way to take these back. I can't turn up in another 2 weeks and say, remember me from 3 weeks, a month ago, and I bought this album, which I've taken the sticker off for $40. Well, I'd like to sort of trade it in. I'd like to get some shop credit. They may not even be there, and I know they don't have an account on Discogs, so there's no way to get through to them. So I wonder how people at markets are actually grading their records. Are they just all assuming they're VG Plus, looking up on Discogs and going, median price, we'll make it that amount of money, and we'll add a few extra dollars on because of all the effort it took us to come out to the market. But if that's the case, let's have a think about what VG Plus is. It's, according to Discogs, generally worth 50% of the near mint value. Record surfaces may show some sign of wear and may have slight scuffs or very light scratches that don't affect one's listening experiences. Well, there you go. It does affect the listening experience. And I had a similar sort of experience, shall I say, when I went up to Sydney to go to a big market up there. And I walked in and I saw a copy of this. I've mentioned this before, There's Mind Bomb, an album I really love. But, you can tell the covers, once again, just a bit grubby. And there were a couple of marks on the vinyl. And it said on the price tag, it said it was VG Plus. And I asked the guy behind the counter, sure it's VG Plus? He goes, yeah, VG Plus, had to listen to it. Everything's great. Took it home. And particularly in the quietest moments, in fact, that should be the title of this video. Even in the quietest moments, there's snap, crackle, and pop. And I was really annoyed because there was no way to go back to this guy and say, hey, pal, I need a refund or I need some credit on this, because it just ain't a thing that's going to happen. Anyway, I appreciate that every record's going to have some surface pops and a little bit of noise. But if you do the elbow grease work and, saturate those vinyls, saturate the records, you should be able to get some of it out. And I'm in no position that I can justify buying an ultrasonic cleaner like a Humming Guru at this stage. So it's all about elbow grease and trying to clean. But where has this left me? It's a really good way to describe it is on that first listen, when I get home, put it on the turntable. And you know what? My overriding emotion when I'm doing this is one of anxiety, because I'm sitting there and I'm actually listening for those record pops and scratches and surface noise. And I'm like this, I'm tense, so it's not an enjoyable experience. And if there are pops and surface noise, I'm like, oh, wasted my money, $40 down the tube. Oh, gee. Or I could be like, oh, thank you. But why does it have to come down to this? I don't know. Can we blame the sellers? I mean, I reckon they probably don't have, hours upon hours to go through every record and grade them. I get that. I get that, but I don't know. There must be a better way. Price a little bit cheaper, because I think some of these sellers are actually trying to hook the fish in with some bait here. For example, I've often heard in one market seller that I go to, people flicking through looking for albums, and they go, "Oh, he really likes AC/DC, or he really likes Van Halen, or he really likes Pink Floyd. Let's pick this up for $80, $100, $200. He'll really love that." And so a lot of these buyers here aren't actually buying to listen to the album. And there was a recent survey done on the BBC, which said that nearly half the people who buy records don't listen to them, and about 40% don't even have a record player. So they become this thing of art for a lot of people. But for me, and I'm sure for you, they're a thing of listening pleasure, the avenue to that music that we love so much. Anyway, so what to do? You'll want to support the sellers. I want to be able to go to that market and have that experience of digging through and getting excited. I want to go into that vintage shop. And vintage shops are a little bit different because you can take them back, but only if you're close to them. And I think that just saying, no, I'm not going to any markets anymore, is just pooping in your own bed. I mean, they're going to disappear. They won't come back. So I've got a couple of rules now that I've instigated, implemented, if you like. And the first one comes down to a gut feeling. If my gut feeling says don't buy it, don't buy it. I've had experiences at another markets where I saw a copy of the Electric Prunes Underground album for $20. And my first reaction was, oh, when I looked at the vinyl, it's beaten up. And then I started to think, yeah, but it'd be lovely to have the artwork. I love this cover so much. It'd be great to have it as a placeholder in my collection. And but a friend of mine who was with me that day, King B, said, it shouldn't even be put on the shelf for $5. I wouldn't have it in my collection. So luckily, the voice of reason was there. And the same thing happened with the same album at a new record shop that had opened, and they had priced Electric Prunes Underground at $50. Looked at the vinyl and it was beat up, and there was just no way I was going to do it unless I just wanted the cover art, and I didn't. So if in doubt, don't buy. And the second one is, when I'm going to these markets, I'm going to set myself a salary cap, a spending cap, because the other day I spent over $100, I think, on vinyl and CDs. And now I'm going to say, I'm going to give myself that cap maybe of $20. And I'm going to be prepared to lose $20 for the joy of the hunt. So coming back to Pete Sinfield, $10 this was, got mold on it, don't really know how it plays, but I'm taking a punt for $10. And do you know what? On that lovely blue cover, shame. Has anybody got any ideas for getting rid of mold on sort of this matte vinyl? Please put them in the comments. So anyway, I'm going to go now and have a listen to it after dry cleaning, wet cleaning, and I'm going to go in with a sense of, hit me with it, Pete. And if it's a bum deal, get rid of it. And if it's not, that's a great buy. It's a beautiful one. Anyway, I'd love to hear some of your experiences at markets and vintage shops. And do you have any rules in place like I'm trying to instigate now? Of course, sometimes I'm going to break a rule. For example, the Church's last album with Marty, Pete, Steve, and Tim, Untitled 23. To buy this, you have to basically sell off part of your house, or cut off a limb and give it to doctors in pursuit of medical science and breakthrough. But at the moment, if I want to buy that on Discogs, it's up for about $400 to $500 now. I'm not going to do that. I don't love the album that much. It's more of a completist thing. But if I saw it in a market for $150, who knows? Anyway, hope you're doing really well. Thanks for coming on this journey and that you're staying cool. And for the time being, bye now.